Hi, everybody. Welcome to Poppy's Field Project. I am Nova, your host, and I'm here with Matthew. And we are going to talk about astrology today of 2024. And we're actually in the middle of the month of the year. Excuse me. It's 7/3. It is the day before July 4th. I know there's probably a lot of people out there getting sunburned and having barbecues. I know that I got a sunburn. I went out yesterday into the water and was kayaking. It was a lot of fun. I'll probably go kayaking again tomorrow and watch the fireworks in the water. So it's a lot of fun. That's what I did a couple of years ago. So we'll see if it happens again. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, we're going to kind of touch base on how the fuck everybody's doing in mid July of this 2024. When you add it up, it actually adds up to the number 8. Okay, so this is like, reoccurrences, infinity, always having to kind of go back and recycle, redo. So if you're feeling a lot of that, you can look at that number 8 of 2024, which is also reaping what you sow, which is number 8. So if you look at what you were doing 8 years ago, you can kind of look at your calendar and look at what's happening now, because that is actually what is up. What did you actually project this manifestation where we all are today and as individuals? So I don't know about you, Matthew. I don't know if you're there or not, but do you remember what you were doing 8 years ago?
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Poppy's Field Project. Yes, you're right. It is halfway-ish past through the year. And there's a
I
lot
can
of
barely hear
energy.
you, by the way. You might want to turn up your mic or something or get closer.
Huh. Let's see. How's that?
Still a little quiet. I don't know if it's me, but I don't think it is. I think it might be on your end.
That's weird. Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, 8 years ago, that was 2016. And so that's interesting because that was like the beginning of the cycle that I'm in at the current moment. So that was just finding a lot of myself and transitioning from just looking all over these spiritual groups and aspects and religions and trying to find my center and who I was into actually finding that grounding. I found that grounding in 2016, about this time of the year too. And I had a pretty profound moment about 8 years ago exactly, that set sail to the course of what's happening now. And so it's interesting that that happened about 8 years ago. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. July is a great month. I love July. I love this time of the year. You get that manifestation of spring that has fully turned green. At least it has out here. Everything's green and it's wet and it's not too hot, but the weather's been lovely, minus the mosquitoes, and it's just been a really nice time. Like, I always get happy around this time of the year just because things flow, and I guess that's usually how I feel when we're in the sign of Cancer here. So pretty exciting. And
Yeah. Oh man, it is
United States
Cancer
birthday
season
tomorrow.
too. Whose birthday?
We got the United States birthday tomorrow.
Oh yeah, the United States. I'm all like, whose birthday?
Oh, that one place.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the thorn in our side's birthday. Actually, it can be, it was supposed to be something very special, but then it, lost all of that in 1871 and became a corporation. Hooray! So, what are we going to do about it, you guys? This is kind of what I know I've been kind of giving people a hard time. And it's not because I don't love you. It's just I'm really giving people a hard time because I want them to start thinking about what is the next step. Are we actually stepping into our masculine and our feminine in this aspect? Are we doing everything we can to um, keep our ability to be free? Because I don't know if we really are free at this time, at this moment. And, I'm feeling that a lot. And that's why I said 2024, the sort of last frontier. Not really, because it's going to continue. We have many things that are going up in astrology still to the end of the year, and it's going to be interesting. What are the kind of some of the pointers that you found? Like I found that there's Mars is going to retrograde at the end of the year, and we still have, of course, the North and South Node in Libra, and then we also have the Sun and Saturn is going to be meeting up, which is a huge complex. That will be probably either squaring or something eventually. I don't remember exactly what, but and then you have like um, some eclipses. Hooray! More eclipses coming. What were kind of a few things that you found that are going to be happening?
Well, in relevance to yesterday and today, on the second and the third, which is today and yesterday, Venus is trining Saturn in Pisces, which actually is kind of a positive thing for people that are in relationships. It's actually creating some stability, and that is a tendency of Cancer. It's this emotional time of like bonding and creating a like close relationships. So that's actually a positive uh, like aspect that's happening at the moment. And then the other one is that also yesterday on the second, Mercury enters Leo and is opposed to Pluto. So this is a little bit more of a different flavor. But it definitely enters a season that's like a pre-Leo season of being like very dramatic and exaggerated. Like it's good for storytelling, sitting around the campfire and telling stories and theatrics, and also it's also a good time to be out and about. Hence, like people going out and doing fun things like kayaking and doing the fireworks and doing outdoor activities and going to events in the cities, and people coming together. Like it's definitely a time that's going to um, be a good aspect um, for having community events.
Hmm. Well, that's to be predicted for sure, because it's usually what happens. So Venus is actually in Cancer um, when I'm looking at it now, and it's on the 20th degree line of Cancer, and it's a wide conjunction to the Sun. So a little bit of soul work there, but you're saying that it was trining Saturn, right, in Pisces.
Yeah.
Okay, so Venus in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces and Cancer, all of this. For me, what I'm seeing is it has a lot to do with more of the authority to the earth, to the aspect, to the conditional love, to the material world. And so, what it's going to do, it's going to give a little bit of wiggle room for being able to have a pleasurable experience um, on the mundane level. At the spiritual level, the esoteric, because the other one is exoteric, which is external stuff, but the esoteric, which is the hidden meanings, the spiritual aspects to it. You're going to be looking at where Saturn is going to make sure that Venus is going to stay in alignment and be able to create a foundation, because that's what Saturn does. It's boundaries and foundations, and it's also has to do with corporations. So what we're looking at with all of that, with Cancer, Venus being in Cancer, she is in her shell right now. She's kind of hiding inside because she's got this soft gooiness. And when Saturn, which is considered, time, Chronos, Father Time, and the authoritative person, you know, he's not being so hard on her at this time, but she's still like cautious. And because right now, as we all know, what the United States of corporation is going through, it is actually being pinched. And like, for example, I saw something on Telegram where this guy, he ordered something like back in 2020, I think it was, or 21. Yeah, it was like, I think it was 2022, 2020, and he went back and reordered just to see how much his Walmart order would be. It was like 130 some bucks or something like that. It's now 400 and some dollars. So it really literally went up. Inflation went up $300 just in the last 4 years, from like 120 to 320, something like that. So no, 420. I can't remember the exact time, but that is a that is a bummer for a lot of people.
That's
And
insane. Wow.
yeah. And so again, this is Pisces or Saturn in Pisces, and it's not so pleasant. So Venus, she's like, yeah, whatever. Time, Father Time. You're not. You're. I'm going to hide from you. I'm not going to. I'll give you some leeway and I'll be disciplined. But however, I'm going to stay in my emotional aspect, which, as we know, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is the mother. And so that mother aspect, she's, taking Venus in and saying, whoa, 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 slow down, with that Saturn, because the Saturn is super, he's vicious. He can be.
Well, it's
He's,
definitely a side of like foundations as well, like starting projects and like defining boundaries. So, for people, corporations, and groups of people, it's a good time to find those boundaries with Saturn
well,
being in
not
position.
so not so much in Cancer, because Cancer, like I said, she's got the hard shell on the outside. You know, she's not really willing to move outside of that yet. And so we have to look at that aspect. When she moves into Scorpio or Leo, then yeah, she's going to be more apt to, free herself. But then again, she'll come across to, doing a Ceci quadrant probably. And that's, again, cautionary. So even though this is a trine, it doesn't mean that she's going to get what she wants. She is basically, what a trine can do is make it oversimplified, and so you actually don't get anything done because it's so freaking easy that you just kind of like, whatever. There's no effort. Squares and oppositions, however, can actually help you grow. But a trine and a sextile can actually inhibit you because it just kind of, gives you a break. So, I mean, yes, she's kind of getting a break to kind of have a time out, I would have to say. But I agree, it is about foundations. But she's not quite ready. Cancer's not, it's more about nurturing and the mother, as we know, what does the mom like to do, especially the dark mother wound that we're going through. You know, that's just kind of what I'm seeing in that. So, anyways, not to like, see, because I see what you're saying with your aspect. It's just, Cancer is, it's a very, um, it's about family and stuff. So you're going to be coming into your family, and so you might have more experience, more foundation with that family. But again, Saturn is going to be like, well, what is it that I need to look at? Do I have a father complex, for example? Do I have Sun Saturn opposition in my chart? or
Well, I mean,
Saturn
there'll be
squaring
a
Saturn
lot of
on it.
introspection, I feel like, because Cancer is a very emotional sign. And so there's a lot of emotions that come up to play. And so with Saturn in that position, Saturn is going to reward those who've done hard work and make those who have had failures or been shady, it's going to make them, reap what they've sown. So it kind of does work in both ways, but it's kind of like turning on the pot to boil, getting the water to boil in terms of the energy. With Cancer going into all of those emotional states of the different aspects of people and its position in the system at the moment. So um, and so that can have multiple effects, if you're a couple or if you're in a group or if you're in an organization or a corporation, there's going to be a lot coming into the emotional state, especially since Mercury is entering Leo opposed to Pluto as well, like happening literally yesterday. So almost the same day. So we're going to get some fiery emotional reactions coming up. And then, of course, Saturn's going to be like the big daddy who's saying, no, 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 keeping limitation on stuff. But all these emotional aspects are going to be trying to come out. So it's going to be a lot of introspection, I feel like, during this period of time, like the beginning of July at least.
Hmm. Yeah, well, in Pluto being in Aquarius, that has a lot to do with innovation, free, being able to be free, but yet in a group. So it's like a sense of self within a group, but it's also independent thinking. And it has to do with like gender equality, actually, because back in, the 1200s and the 1300s, when Pluto was in Aquarius, these are when women started to speak up and wanted rights, and so and how also for the laws to be broken. And so when Pluto is opposing Mercury, in the aspect, you're going to have um, a lot of disagreement. And it's like you said, I think it's introspection, and because what we're looking at is, are we wanting to be free or from being enslaved for so long of 8 to 5,000 years? Are we willing to be the rulers of our own, and support each other in groups? Because a lot of people thought that we're going to be coming into these communities and be living together. And well, I don't know if that's really happening. I've heard that people are still kind of like struggling and they're trying to find that. But again, this comes down to where we're going to have colonial lifestyles or community lifestyles. Is this going to be about the age of humanity? Because that's what Aquarius does. Is it has a lot to do with philosophy and intellect, and this is actually when Aristotle, came out, and during the Renaissance time in like between 1286 and 1307, when Pluto was in Aquarius the first time. You know, this was when he came up with ethics, and so what we're looking at right now with Mercury opposing that is, we're really questioning the intellectual, philosophical attributes. Are we in alignment, or are we just repeating, the same crap over and over again? So it's also in 1532 and 1582 to 1582. Um, there was this is when we were settling colonies, and we had humanism starting to come up, and where corporations started to, there's actually this Copernicus. He did this book called Revolutions of the Spheres, and that's when the Earth was first, thought as maybe it's a possibility that it's a globe. And a lot of people think it is a globe, and a lot of people still think it's flat, and then some people think it's an egg shape, and some people blah 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 blah. So there's still a lot of things. There's a lot of questions that are unanswered, because even though there was all these revelations that happened, were they really there, or was it really the first time? Like, for example, the balloon. A balloon was the first time it took flight, was during one of these, like a balloon for a hot air balloon, was during these times. And was that our first time taking flight? I don't think so. But again, we're coming into like, these hidden meanings. And right now with that Pluto, we're having a lot of questions with that, with Mercury, or
Yeah,
we're not quite
it's a
sure.
deep dive. Pluto loves to do the deep dives, and it loves to uncover things because it holds the secrets. And when it's making a move in the solar system, it's going to be unlocking those secrets, based on the sign that it's in. And so, like right now, Pluto's going to be bringing out a lot of the, making us question the stories that we've been told, and whether, what's been written in the history books is truly accurate or not. And, you know, with, um, with Mercury going into Leo, like that then is going to amplify the communication and amplify magnitude to that communication. So then it's like you've got Pluto, the questioning of knowledge, then amplifying through Mercury, and then voicing itself through Leo. So it's going to be like, truth tellers, whistleblowers, people that are out there discovering the truth. Like it's going to be a time period where those truths are not just discovered, but they're told loudly. They're being expressed in a very powerful way. Like it's not just like a little bit of whisper in the back corner. It's like people are talking about it and putting it out there and making sure that it's known. And we're
Mm.
going to see where that goes here in the next month. I mean,
I
especially
think
as
Mercury too is also, he's a trickster, so Pluto is exposing that. And he's actually going to be, and that's what 2024 is actually a lot about, is exposure. And I know that a lot of us in this room today are going, yeah, I don't even know where I am anymore. I don't even know what to believe in anymore. You can always, look at your chart though, however, because your chart is the blueprint of what to expect. And so it helps you understand and work with your psychosis, because astrology literally is like these unliteral gods, a process of experience of who we are. And a lot of us need to go into therapy. However, the thing about therapies today is that astrology is not present within that therapy session usually, and so kind of have to get someone that knows how to do that stuff, and it can help you work through that. I am not a licensed therapist, and I don't want to claim to be because I don't think they are useful. However, just my own experience and study, I think that I'm way better than any psychologist. Still learning astrology, because I needed to understand what was really happening to me, and I feel like a lot of us were like, what the fuck is going on? Like I don't feel like I am myself. I don't really know what's going on. And well, yeah, you really kind of are, because our reactions and our consciousness is the zodiac process. And and really, until you drink the last drop, you can't really get past and move to the next wound, because there's going to be another one after you heal the last wound. And we attract these problems through the psyche, whatever that complex is that we haven't quite decided to nip in the bud, and this is where we come up free. And it all lies within us, and it's absolutely our own. Our own astrology can add this understanding of our divine guest, of being here on this planet. And Jung was actually really, he did this whole thing on Pisces in the Piscean age. If you guys want to check it out, he was pretty extensive in it. And they had a lot to do with religious expression, during the Piscean age. And each actual zodiac is still has something to do with some type of, not necessarily dogma, but just a spiritual experience. Because Pisces is definitely dogma. But when we move into Aquarius, it's going to be more about, the collective inner self, because it has to do with ourselves as individuals, but as a collective. And so we're going to be, reaching, even past even further, because this is like every 72 years, it moves like 1 degree. And that's, so, that ends up like 26,000, years for each in the zodiac sign, right? For each zodiac sign to be moved, through. And so, each one of them is going to represent some type of spiritual experience, where we are starting to get to know ourselves even further. It's pretty fascinating, actually. And, so I wouldn't worry, sweat the small stuff. Like, let's just move on. And, like, we got this. Like, we just got to remember this is only an experience, and we get to choose how do we have that experience. It's pretty simple.
Well, hey, I mean, like speaking of astrology and ages, I feel like at least for some of us, we've incarnated into this age to learn specific things because it is this age, and each age has its own flavor and things that humanity is working on. And so, right now, we're working on technology, and we're working on bringing our community and our humanity back together. And obviously, it's a struggle because we're still out of the age, so like, and we're just coming into Aquarius at this point. So we're on that cusp, we're on that transition. And like for you and I, we're both cuspers, we're like right on the transition. So it's interesting to be transitional people in a transitional time. And you get a little bit of this side and a little bit of that side. And this age is pretty unique, I'd have to say. There's a lot on the table and a lot for humanity to learn and also to grow together with. And I mean, luckily we can break it down into like month by month, day by day, as we look at each planet, like especially the quick ones like Mercury and Venus that zip around the sun versus like, Pluto, which takes its time going around. Luckily Earth is like close enough to not make those take forever, but still at the same time, like in the galactic clock, there's definitely going to be epochs and stories within each of the ages. And so here we are. We are in the age of Aquarius, the very beginning. The water is
Well,
being poured.
some say that they would have to disagree that we're in that right now. They have to say that we're actually not there yet. So there's some disagreement on that. I really can't say. I don't think we are. I know that you might think so, but if it's supposed to be the age of Aquarius, and I think we're at the preface of it, if not anything on the edge, because the age of Aquarius is supposed to be a lot cleaner and smoother. And so I think we're dying. I think the Piscean age is dying off, because it's not going to be so much about dogmas and what's controlling the fucking planet right now. Dogmas, the Vatican, the Romans, the Jewish, religions, the Catholic or the Christian churches. They're still like ruling over most people. But again, like I said, Saturn is unveiling all of that. And that's because it's in Pisces, and it's making us like look at everything and question that. Because like, even, come on. I had some, not an argument, but I was just literally just like, look, you know, if this is if I am the one that's creating all of this, and I'm the one who's making this all up, and my thoughts are what's, creating all of this, and supposedly, this person thought I was being pessimistic, and I was like, well, I'm not really pessimistic. I'm just looking at what is a reality that is not necessarily mine, because if it was my reality, if it was truly just my reality, there wouldn't be all these lies, there wouldn't be, pedophiles, there wouldn't be war. I could go down a list of things like, I'm sure you could add a few of those, Matthew, like it's just not true. Just like, there's just no way, so we still have to take some type of responsibility. Because Saturn and Pisces, that one is a real uh, it there's a lot of death. And if and I know that a lot of people out there in the world have seen a lot of relatives die or friends. I've known quite a few people that have had a lot of death in their life. And it's interesting, my lineage is refusing to die, even though it tried to take out my mother. She's still going. So, but again, she's in this healthcare system now, and this healthcare system, oh boy, it is unhealthy, 100%. And I know that most of us are in agreement to that. And, and now we're coming up with like new regulations. We don't know what the fuck is going to happen. All I know is that, the WHO organizations and the WEF are all trying to get into our bodies. And, they've been planning this shit for 30, 50 years, or if not longer. Supposedly the stupid Spanish flu that they made up again, is just a reenactment. So it's like this shit happens every 100 years. And it makes me wonder, what was really the Black Plague about? Because we're talking about, just when humanity is starting to unveil the truth, what happens? Just when we start to get advanced, what happens?
Well, there's always cataclysms, and that's been like the breathing cycle of the earth for millennia, forever. It's always been like that. So it's like, but of course there could be malintent now, because of course, if some people are getting too powerful, all it takes is somebody to do a little alchemy or create a virus to then eradicate a third of the population, like what happened during the Black Death.
Do you really believe that there's always been cataclysms? Do you really believe that?
I do really believe that.
Like
there's
from the
geologic
very
evidence.
Beginning of the Earth.
Yeah. There's
why do you believe that?
Because you can look at the geology and you could see how life has fluctuated based on the geologic layers that are excavated across the entire planet. You can see when things were very carbon rich. You can see when there's lots of oxygen. You can see when there were volcanic explosions. You can see when things were very dry versus when they were very wet. It's like looking at the bones of the planet Earth. And even like the ice shelves in the North Pole and in Antarctica, they also show or have composites of the actual, like, of what was existing in the atmosphere at that time, and it's frozen into these ice cores, and the ice cores are able to give us a timeline of what was going on in the Earth's atmosphere during a certain time. So one thing we know for certain is that there's been mass volcanic eruptions every couple of 100,000 years that detrimentally affect life, and it's kind of like this breathing pattern. And if we're looking at as above so below, it's like, if we look at the fractaling nature of nature itself, who's to say that humanity wouldn't do the exact same thing?
As I open my Zevia.
So yeah, and I'm looking. I was curious about the Age of Aquarius. It's interesting because it is debated. It seems like the years range from 2012 to 2597, and people are not for certain on which
I don't agree with that.
year it starts.
It doesn't feel like the Age of Aquarius.
Well, it says right on right in the top here that it's been debated and is continuously debated. So
Yeah,
um,
I think that we've talked about this before. I think we're missing like a big chunk of time, like maybe 400 years.
yeah, and it also depends on when you start calculating your time. I mean, there's cultures that are still living in the past because they have 13 months,
Right.
like
They changed the
so.
calendars.
Yeah, and not everybody on the earth is using the same calendar. So
No,
it's not like we have a universal time.
I
Well, I
agree.
guess there is like the atomic clocks, but I mean, how long have those been around? Not long enough to measure ages by at this point. I mean, we only
Yeah,
really
it's
synced up
all.
time in like the last 150, 200 years. Like
Mm.
when the trains were invented, like that was when towns actually did begin to synchronize their times because they had to get trains to run on time and not hit each other because one place was 15 minutes off and the other one was 15 minutes off. Like then they might run into each other on the track, so they had to figure out a way to have a universal time. But that only really happened after the invention of the steam engine. So like universal time is still pretty new,
Hmm. I
and
mean,
a lot of the past has been erased or forgotten. Like thinking of how the Egyptians or the Mayans calculated time. Like we could use their tablets and look at what they used, but again, did they have pocket watches that measured it down to the very
oh, I
minute?
think they had tablets like we did, like we do, if not more advanced. The reason why is they eventually didn't have them anymore is because there was the vapor canopy, and I even heard in the what's that Bible called? Oh shoot, the Kilbron or something. Am I saying it right? I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. The Kilberon Bible or something. It was basically saying, it talked about the red dust in the air and how it covered the earth, and a lot was lost. And then of course we've had wars, and we've had the reset button over and over and over again. But I don't think that it really was before. I don't think, like, when the Lemurians were around, the Toltecs. I don't really know. I can't really say that in ancient Lemuria that there might have been so much as cataclysms as there were today, because we didn't even have a consciousness really at that point. That is what the ancient texts say, that we weren't, not until we split into two and became man and women, right? Because we were one thing before. So I don't really know if I would agree with. I mean, the Earth might have been shifting, maybe, but I don't. I would think that our consciousness is the one that's making that happen. And so, if we weren't really conscious and aware yet, and this is supposedly like the story of the endemic race and when it was split and created. So before that, we were not necessarily, we were more etheric beings that could recreate ourselves, and we had sight, more sight, and more, our communication wasn't necessary in words so much. It was literally just manifestation, and like making things come into being. So because we don't, I mean, a lot of people think that the earth is not that old, and it could be like trillions of years old as far as I'm concerned. So, well, that's just my opinion, and based on a lot of the ancient you know whatevers. Oops. So sorry, I put this slide in the wrong spot because I just went over Saturn a little bit. But we also have the North and South Node to go over. I just want to say that you've all been listening to Poppy's Field Project. We get together each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I am Nova, your host, and I am here with Matthew, and we're talking about a little bit of astrology in this mid-year of 2024. And the happy 4th of July. Hopefully, it'll be happy for everybody. It would be even happier if we got rid of some of this Saturn. Because it's really going to be dragging on, and we're going to have to really stand up in our power if we want to get, out of this enslavement of this planet. And then we also have a Mars retrograde at the end of the year, and then guess what? Eclipse season! It's coming again! Woohoo! But I wouldn't put too much time and effort. It isn't going to be crossing over the United States like this last one. And honestly, that one, I think that, they took a lot of the energy of the people that really don't know what these things mean. And they're going to use, and they, them, whoever we are going to, use that to, start something else, like a cataclysm that Matthew was just talking about. So we never know. We got to be careful with these things. So, next up, the North and South Node. It's in Libra, is the South Node. And the North Node is in Aries. And so what that means, Aries is very fiery, and it likes to keep itself, it's a very personal, like, I don't like using that word. What's another word besides personal? Individual. It's an individual
Intimate,
life.
maybe.
What's that?
Intimate, maybe.
Well, it has to do with you. So it's intimacy with yourself. Because the word person means corporation now that we know that. We don't want to use that word anymore. Personality or person.
The I.
Yes, the I. It's the I am. The Emmanuel. It's and it goes into that Vecca code that we were talking about, the Merkaba, which we will be continuing next week with the sounds and the vowels and all that stuff. But this has to do with, like, what do we want? Do we want peace and harmony? Within ourselves? Do we want to have boundaries? And what's interesting is that Mars is the guardian of this entire North and South Node because it rules Aries. And so it not only is it, selfish and can be, a warlord, it's literally, just comes in and says, I'm going to move. I'm going to make things happen. And so that's the beauty of,
Well,
like,
that'll be an
having.
interesting one with Mars and Aquarius, because that will be a lot of fiery transformation. And then with Libra being in the South Node, it's almost like justice and fairness is kind of being left in the past almost.
What do you mean by Mars and Aquarius? I'm a little confused. What do you mean by that?
If the North Node is in Aquarius, then
No,
that's going to be,
it's in Aries.
or Aries. Sorry about that. It's still going to be very fiery, though, because Aries is a very fiery sign. So
Yeah, because Aquarius is air. So yeah, you're totally right. It's totally fiery.
so that with Mars, and Mars is fiery as well. So I mean, like, we might even see like people upthrowing, maybe not the government, but I mean, like, with the election coming up and everything, like, there's going to be a lot of crazy fiery energy going on that we're ramping up to, through the end of 2024. Like, it's going to be a big one. And it's all, and then like with Libra in the South Node, that's going to be kind of putting like the equality and the justice aspect, the balance of it, kind of in the past. putting it
Well, just
behind.
personal, just having relationships too. We're really questioning our relationships with the government. We're having we're questioning our political leaders. We're questioning Hollywood. We're questioning the geographers, the historians. We're questioning all of it. Because we're finding out that we have been lied to about a lot of things. Like we're questioning about like we should have free electricity. We're questioning like why are we having to pay for food? We're questioning the whole monetary system. Like what they get to have all this fake illusionary stuff they just pull out of thin air, and then they say it's attached to gold. And what is gold? What is that going to do for you? Oh wait, it can turn into monatomic, gold, mono, right? Manu. But are they using it for that? No. Or are they? I
Well,
mean,
we don't know because it's all stored away in places that we do not have access to.
yeah. And why did that happen? Well, because we let it happen. It's like this. It's this broken record that we're on. I mean, think about it. If the Earth is flat in the old way, they'd say that we're on the reel, or we're the broken record that just keeps on spinning, and that we're the center of the Earth. But that's again was saying that we aren't the center of the Earth, or are we? Who knows anymore? Like, not until I'm up on a ship or something that takes me outside of where I could actually see the freaking planet. I don't really believe in anybody. I mean, yeah, you could like say that there's science and there's math, but even that's being questioned today. And to me, I don't really care. What I care about is what's internal, anyways. And what was interesting is that during this time, the last time, which was in 2011, what was happening then? Um, you know, what kind of movies was there? There was actually like that was when Harry Potter's Goblet of Fire came out, and that is a Mars. That's a Mars energy movie. You also had War of the Worlds, and you had Star Wars #3 that came out.
You also had
And
that stupid, corny 2012 movie that came out too.
oh God, so I
That one
mean,
was pretty
look at
bad.
they were planning us to be destroyed by now. They were all getting us ready, but the only thing is like Harry Potter movies, those were a little different. They were showing that we were actually magic within ourselves, but we were going to have to go through this fucking hell to get there. It's the same kind of story when you really think about it. I mean, what were you doing in 2011? I remember I was working, I was living in Portland, and I hated my job. I had a really crappy relationship that I was trying to work through. Like I've always been. It's like the same story. Again, it's the broken record, and now I've stopped that record. I'm not doing that
Good.
anymore.
Yeah, that was the end of a chapter for me at that point because I had graduated high school that year, and I had moved out of my parents' house. I moved to Albuquerque for a little while. I did a lot of drugs and dated a very, not a bad person, but a very silly person that I did not the best things with. Um, I don't know. That was a year about freedom for me. Like finally moving away from school and doing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So just like breaking the pattern of like you get up, you go to school, and you go back to bed, you do your homework, blah blah blah. Like I was finally like, screw all that. I'm a free person. Even
Yeah.
though, going to a university isn't being free, but the illusion of being free was there at that point, based on my perspective at that time.
Yeah.
There,
And
yeah, a
I
lot happened.
and this with this north and south node, are those boundaries that you set up then, have they changed? Well, probably, you know and they've because after you start to experience the world even further, you start going, oh, I need to not do this anymore. Or I want some more of this, because this is better. And so, that's one of the things that we need to look at is, are we wrapping up the boundaries, or are we letting some of the boundaries go because we actually are fulfilled? Because that's the whole thing about the seventh house of Libra. It's very, we can be very open. We're open and we're above the horizon at that point, and so we're really exposed. We're no longer in the underworld. We're exposed. We're giving our love out. We can look at one another. We can consider whether or not there's justice that needs to be made, and that's what's happening right now. Um, we're coming up on November elections, and are we justified, or are we going to continue to pretend that we're gonna vote, and that our vote counts, even though it doesn't, because we're, again, not a country, we are a corporation. And like, even somebody, we were talking about this, I don't know if it was with you, but oh, he's gone. Let's see if we can get Matthew back in. What can happen is, like, we may not be able to even get back. Let me see, hold on for a second, technical difficulties. Let me see if Matthew can get back in. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he said that his cat pressed the X button. Bad cat. Bad kitty. So, here, let me make sure that he says to Steve, if you're there, Steve, help us. There we go. Okay. Anyways, I'll continue. So yeah, going back to the boundaries, that's what this whole North and South thing is about, is like, are we ready to, be more open and love in the way we're supposed to? Do we repair the boundaries that we felt we weren't able to get through? Um, are we now advanced enough to, like, say, okay, I don't really need that boundary anymore because I'm pretty solid in myself and I can deal with it? And so that's what this whole North and South node, is really focused on. And that's what, that North node is really about the inner self. And when it starts to move out of that in January 11th, 2025, welcome back. Yeah, we'll be able to finally, get past that. And, we're not going to be able to we don't need to have this feeling anymore of like we're victims, and because we came in so deeply within our souls, that it'll switch, and then that North node is going to be going into Pisces, in after
Ooh,
July.
another deep one.
Hmm. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So
Yeah, it'd be nice switch up from all the fire to get a little bit of water. It's nice to go from
phew.
one to the other.
Yeah, well, this fire has been a little necessary to hopefully get us, kick back into shape, and get our humanity back, because a lot of us have lost our balls and ovaries. Just gonna say, and it's been about darn time. I don't know, man. And our DNA is so corrupted in the last 5,000 to 8,000 years. It's going to be really hard to crack this one. And I really don't believe that there's an ascension process on this planet. I believe that our only way is transcending off of it. Not to bum anybody out, but that's just what I really believe. Because our soul needs to transition, and you can't really transition too much when you're just repeating over and over and over again. You're not really moving forward. And I think moving forward is a lot more interesting than being stuck on something. So
I
yeah,
think it
also there's
depends on the soul and depends on the person, because there's definitely certain people that have characteristics and ability to be able to do that. But I would say like a general, like all of humanity ascending all at once, like the whole new agey thing, like, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
that
not
that's going to
happening.
happen.
But I really
If
don't think there's
anything,
ascension.
I think individuals or small groups of people can do that because it's really more a state of consciousness rather than like turning into a spirit body or something.
Yeah, no, that's all that's all bullshit. Like I don't believe that, you know, we're gonna be like all of a sudden like, oh yeah, we're all awake. Woohoo! You know, so many more people. Hey, you can believe that? That's great. Actually, I encourage it. But that doesn't stop you from being delusional and thinking that there's still a lot of work to do, and that there's still pedophiles out there. There's still governments that are pedophiles, and there's still religious affiliations that are still pedophiles and rapists and killers, and they're still enslaving us. I mean, come on. If we were free, we wouldn't be getting a federal ID to have to travel on a plane, or this possible like what China is doing, the social crediting system. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, we're not ready to ascend. We're not even fucking close. I'm not saying that I'm not in that reality. Okay, like, you know, I know Matthew doesn't. We're in different timelines. You know, but that's a fucking reality. I know that because I can see it. I can see it in people's eyes when I go out into the world, and I witness them. You know, and you know they are unhappy and they're stressed the fuck out. You know, because America's finally knowing what it's feeling like to become a failed state, just like the rest of the fucking world is. Of course, not the rest of the
Yeah,
world, but you know what I'm getting at.
things have to, it's darkest before the dawn is a good way to put it.
Yeah, but again, it just repeats itself. So that's why I don't really believe that there's an ascension here. I really don't. I think you have to transcend and get the fuck out. I mean, because if this was a planet like up in Orion, you know, this has happened before. It's just a virus. It just keeps, you know, going on and on and on and on until we decide to stop that. You know, I mean, we have free will. We can do it anytime. But you know, we're in a dualistic world, and most people are polarized. You know, most of our consciousness is polarized. So also we have like in Mars is going to be retrograding on December 25th, and that will be ending on in February 23rd in 2025. And so again, we're going back to boundaries, and this is, you know, reinforcing, you know, are we going to fall back? And it's going to go back to the things that we did not, you know, adhere to, that we did not actually, like, for example, this whole entire year has been about boundaries. That's why I'm bringing it up so much, because when, for example, my situation, well, it's not necessarily my situation, it's my, you know, my roommate's situation, his property. It's all been about boundaries for this whole fucking entire year. That's why I don't have a garden this year. As a fucking asshole tore up my garden and put stakes up, but not a fucking fence. Are you fucking kidding me? So okay, so this is like, again, my consciousness, like, you know, saying, oh well, you know, so basically by the end of the year, we're gonna have to revisit this shit. And if you don't fucking step up and say, no, this is a fucking boundary, it's just gonna keep happening. So do we want peace? Or do we just want to keep on continuing to suffer? I mean, it's a choice at this point. Like, humanity really needs to decide what it's going to be doing here. I mean, I don't know about Matthew. What kind of boundaries have you been having? You know, issues.
With my contractor, definitely.
Yeah,
He's not respecting boundaries that I've set multiple times that are in contract, in writing, that he's legally bound to.
yeah.
So,
But
that
that's all been
I'm,
thrown out the door this year. It's been all about like fighting over that. And you
yeah,
better, if you can, try to get that all resolved before February 23rd.
well, I'm hoping to resolve it like within a sooner time period. I'm not going to say anything live here on the show, but there is a plan that I have that might involve flipping the script on his ass very monumentally. So it's it's gonna be he's gonna be in a world of hurt if he doesn't shape it up pretty soon here.
Well, and that's a part of it is like just straight up saying, what the fuck, motherfuckers, like enough, and having the cojones, right? The heart to be strong within yourself and the mind to have the intellect to say enough is enough. Like we made a fucking agreement.
Oh, and
Okay.
it's even more than that. It's like sometimes even when you say what you say and demand respect, sometimes you have to pull certain moves to prove that you're
Oh, yeah.
serious and that you're not fucking around.
Oh, yeah. No, you have to. And this is where that dark side comes in, And so this whole love and light bullshit, like we were just kind of talking about, like, oh, we're just going to be positive about everything and then we'll ascend. Bull fucking shit. You have to say, no, I now have the demon inside of me. I'm not going to hurt you, but you're not going to do this anymore. And so I'm putting you on timeout. You're going to go sit in the fucking corner and you're going to think about what you've done for a very long time, whatever that may be to you. Just like these pedophiles, right? In this world. Like, what the fuck? We're still sitting here having to talk about pedophiles? Really? Why isn't this healed yet? We're talking about thousands upon thousands of years of pedophilia and enslavement, and we're still doing it? Why is this even a conversation?
I mean, we're still in the dark ages for the most part. Like,
yeah.
I think the whole point of the whole ascension thing, at least in my perspective, is to plant seeds. Like, this isn't really the time that we go into the golden age overnight. It's like the intention of our consciousness is part of the shift that moves the pendulum back towards that in the future, even if it's beyond this lifetime.
And then we have a couple more eclipses coming up right before your birthday, actually, is September 17th. And this one's all about dreams. I believe this one is the solar eclipse. I can't remember. I apologize. I think this is the solar. Actually, let me just double check right now.
Well, that'll be exciting. It's crazy how many eclipses there are. I know there's a map somewhere on one of our group podcasts where it shows all the eclipses and like where they go all over the world. But I think the other one this year was like either going through the ocean or maybe Africa or something like that. It was like mostly over
this
water.
is the solar eclipse.
Mm.
It's going to be visible from parts of Chile and Argentina.
Oh, South America. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And actually, if you remember, that's where the eclipse, I think it was 7 years ago, that it went through and Pfizer became, remember? I brought that up in my last, not like what, like 2 months ago when we did, whenever we did the last eclipse thing. And Pfizer, and this is when who was fucking elected? Trump. And it was in the same spot. So we're having the same, guess what? It's a mathematical matrix that we live in.
Yeah, and people call astrology bullshit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's the same fucking thing. That's why I'm saying good luck trying to ascend out of here, you guys. You're not going to. You're gonna have to transcend out of this place because it's a construct. So this one's about dreams and what you want and what you love. So, and who you want to be. Who do you want to love? Can you love your ex? Can you forgive them? Can you forgive the government? Can you forgive those pedophiles? Can you love them? Do we have to love them? What do you love? I mean, like truly love, not something that makes you feel good about yourself, right? Because love isn't always a feel-good thing, because love is both dark and light. So what kind of dreams do you want to have? That's what this whole solar eclipse is going to be about. And oh, what are you talking about? That is
Well,
total.
the dreams are always interesting because, one, building dreams, and two, the dreams that we have that show us our deep
I'm sorry,
subconscious
that
and
one's a lunar eclipse.
our
I
day-to-day
apologize.
life. So those are always fascinating. Like, I love when we talk about dreams. Like, that's a whole topic on its own, I'd say.
Yeah, and I apologize. It is the lunar, and that makes more sense. I read it wrong, but and that makes sense because lunar is what the dreams. It can make you go lunatic. You can go crazy. However,
Lentacular.
yeah, October is when the solar is actually happening. But yeah, no, this dreamland that we have, like, because we are in a dreamland, everybody. So, do we want to have peace or do we want to continue? Because this moon is going to be, or it's going to be organized. This is an organization of dreams. So, again, we're coming back to that 2024 and add that up to 8. That means you reap what you sow. So, are you going to be able to expand your love? Are you going to be able to, you know, um, truly forgive instead of like continuing to blame, you know, outside entities for the way you feel and for what's happening to this planet and what's happening to our consciousness? And unfortunately, a lot of the people that were, um, calculated,
Yeah, nice.
calculated, are not going to feel that. They're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to ascend or transcend. They're not going to be able to. They made their choice. They already did. And that's why, I'm just kind of like, well, we're not in the freaking Age of Aquarius, you guys. Really not. Because if we were in the Age of Aquarius, that wouldn't be happening. We would be a lot. We would be able to be more in our dream state. That doesn't mean that we can't get to it. It's actually going to be on the 28th degree of Pisces, this moon. It's conjuncting Neptune. And Neptune rules Pisces. And so it's in Pisces, right? The 28th degree. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be one of my favorite days because I love Neptune. Neptune is the unconditional love. So that's why I said, are you going to be able to forgive all of these mishaps that are ourselves, are a reflection? Because there is no separation. I mean, there is separation, but there really isn't. We're just blaming our outside selves for fucking us up. So we got to take some responsibility here somehow. I don't know how we're going to do it. I mean, I'm doing it, but I can't tell people what to do. I'm not going to be that codependent person anymore. You guys got to figure it out. I'm just here to help you out. If you want to be here, cool. If you don't, cool. Don't really care. But I'm not going to tell you what to do anymore. I'm done with that. I figured that out a long time ago that just doesn't work. It doesn't work. All you can do is visualize what you want to see happen and then go from there.
Hey, we get the choice every single day.
Every single
We
day.
create our reality. So,
Yeah. And then the solar eclipse, which is October 2nd, that's going to be where we're going to be able to build some peace, and we're going to be able to finally say, okay, which relationships are important? Which ones have been here for me? Which ones actually give a shit about what I do, and have been, haven't really, have been here, going though I might have been a shitty person, or they might have been a shitty person. Now they're kind of like, oh, fuck, what did I do? Who's going to be on your side this time? Are you going to be able to, get past those conflicts? And so that's, we're looking up until the next eclipses, which happen next year, because there's always four. Usually, I think there's always four. I think sometimes there might be 5, but it just depends on the year. Again, because of the calendars that they screwed up. So, are we going to be able to, like, this whole war bullshit, like, really? I was listening to this astrologer yesterday, and
Hmm.
man, this whole thing with like Israel and Palestine, man, just the way they talk about that whole situation, it doesn't. Astrologers are like, oh, well, Hamas, they don't even go into the fact that Israel actually is occupying that place, and it was a whole setup, and they fucking took over that place, and just like in America and everywhere else, right? They didn't go into like they actually started the whole fucking thing, and they think that they're the chosen ones. And so, the World War II and all this bullshit um was actually German Jews and all this other fucking crap. I mean, the stuff that's coming out today, I'm like wondering if like, and I never thought I'd ever say this, but I don't think Hitler's an awesome, great guy either. But holy fuck, I'm wondering what really happened. Why would somebody do something like that? Even though I totally disagree with killing all those fucking people. You know, at the
Yeah,
same
there's
time, I'm like,
definitely a lot that's been hidden. And I mean, the script is, as we know, like this is kind of like basic bones of what we talk about, but like, yeah, it's been scripted. It's been narrated directly from like to create a certain opinion. Like it's causing hate and divide, and like that's kind of the like why it's important not to tune into all the news and stuff. Every time I end up like walking into a house where they have the news on or something, I'm like, you could just feel the negative vibration and
yeah,
like like the hypnosis of it. Just
right,
like it's like it creates this fear cycle, and it also has like this addictive quality to it where you just want to hear more and more and more and more and more. And again, it's like history is written by the victor. Like, how do you know what history truly is? And the further back you go, the less you know. It's that's why I think it goes back to us questioning our reality and what we really do can affirm as our reality and as events that have happened, like how much actually has happened and what has been scripted and just told to us to create a specific narrative. I mean, we
yeah. It's been
really
quite the
only
narrative,
know
man.
based on our lifetime what has truly happened because and even half of that is only hearsay from other people.
Yeah. And it comes down to a point where you just kind of start giving a shit, like, really? And I just start laughing about it now. And again, we need to start, saying it's okay and it's not okay. Like this whole let's be tolerant bullshit. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Let's tolerate war. Let's tolerate, bullies. Really? Wow, that's something that was taught to us. I don't know what it's like in the school system anymore, but bullies were never reprimanded ever. I mean, maybe because why? The school didn't have as much power. Maybe the parents would come in and sue. Or really was it about like we're just allowing these predators to come into humanity and like destroy children from the very beginning.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, I don't know if you were bullied. Were you bullied?
Rarely.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
luckily
really.
I was like a decent size, so most people were not
Oh, I
bigger
never
than me.
had fights, but I know that happens with boys all the time.
I mean, there was like
Violence.
verbal bullying, but I mean, like that's pretty standard, I'd say. Like people just calling each other
That's
stupid names and
worse.
stuff. Um,
Mental bullying is worse than getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. So I mean, but I mean, compared to some people, I think it was pretty tame, at
I mean,
least from.
I was bullied, but would turn around and be like, no, 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 and they'd be like, because I was really intelligent, and they would they would just run or like wouldn't know what to say back, and because I was pretty and I wasn't a popular girl because I was very they didn't understand me. I was different. I dressed differently. I acted differently than them, and um, little did they know what my life was like. But they just kids bullied, and it wasn't that bad, but I mean, I just ignored it. I just kind of went along with my life. And when it did happen, I'd just turn around and destroy them.
I'm trying to think of examples today of where people are okay with bullying. I mean, I feel like that's something that's always been like frowned upon, but also people, maybe you're talking about people not really standing up against it.
Well, uh, I mean, they wouldn't defend people. Like I remember being on the bus. It was a public bus, and there was a kid. He was mentally retarded, and this guy, God, he was a prick. I don't remember his name, but all I know is he died at the age of 18 or 19 after we graduated, and he
Holy,
deserved it. Honestly, he was a total asshole, and he was picking on him, on a retard, and nobody stood up and said anything. I didn't even say anything. I just was watching, and to this day, I was like, why didn't I ever say anything? You know?
yeah, it's on one hand, people don't want to be the person to stand up, and on the other hand, people also don't know what to say, or they don't have the balls to do it. Like that's happened to me a couple of times where somebody says something and I wasn't quick enough to like figure out the correct response, and then by the time the moment's over, I think I'm like, oh, that was the response, and I'm like, oh, well, now the moment's over. Like
Yeah. I know.
sometimes,
Well, they would
sometimes it
call
hits
me
you
like,
from outside of left field, like.
they would call me like, stupid names. I was just like, really? That's all you got? Like, I remember I was jogging with my friends, or with my friends, and the same dude, right? He's like, "Good, you need to run, you fatso," and I'm like, I was not even fat. He's just a fucking like whatever the fuck, that consciousness. I was just they cut my friends were just looking at me like, what is he talking about? I was like, I don't know. Like, we just kept running because I was like, I didn't get hurt by it or anything like that. I was like, this guy's an idiot. Like, I'm like 126 pounds, 5'6". Like, what is he talking about? Like,
Like that, I think he couldn't come up with anything clever, I guess.
I know. I was like, well, see you later, dude. Whatever. I don't know, it's probably some guy that had a crush on me that could never actually like, say what he wanted to actually say.
Yeah, that could be the case. And I mean, again, it's like one, people have crushes, and then two, also people have that I don't know, trauma that they haven't. Zines, don't do that. They have that trauma that they haven't resolved, so they take it out on other people,
Yes, yeah, they do. It
and they
happens.
don't even recognize it.
Yep. Well, folks, yeah, I mean, this is kind of the whole thing. So got to make peace with like our inner bullies, if we or the one making peace with someone that we never like we didn't stand up for, and maybe it's time to start standing up for the underdog, and and if that means that we might get our butts kicked or whatever, maybe it's time. Maybe we need a good ass kicking, or like, are they going to throw us all into prison? you know, if we don't, if we say no to this draft. I mean, come on. Are we really going to let our fucking kids get drafted again? I mean, let's think about this. So, but I'll leave you with that thought, because we are going to go on to now
Telegram.
into Telegram and open up the floor for our evening discussion. I'm going to open up the floor right now, and I'm going to grab that link so that way everyone can continue. Please just hold, Adrian. I see you in there. I'm opening up the floor.
And in the meantime, thank you for listening to Poppy's Field Project. We get together every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock if you're on the West Coast, 8 Mountain Time, 9 Central, and 10 o'clock if you're on the East. Or wait, is that right? East Coast, 10?
It's
Right?
9
9,
Eastern.
9, and then 8 Central, 7 Mountain, 6 your time. There we go. I was thinking of the old time. So thank you for tuning in to Poppy's Field Project and
Yeah.
listening to Astrology today. Like you said, we will continue this conversation on Telegram and see what you guys have to say. And next week, I think we're going to get back into topic of the ley lines, the telluric currents, the Merkaba, and I think we'll have Mariah back too. So that'll be
Yeah,
fun
she'll
to
be
get
back.
the old trio. So
She's excited to get into the continuation of the vibration of words and sound. So that'll be very soon, and we will wrap it up, with that. I'm pretty excited because it's going to be quite a bit of a job there. I mean, because it's really deep. We just kind of touched on the VECA codes. We went over the Merkaba, the last one, and now there's going to be a lot more into that. I'll have to we'll give you a nice surprise for that, but I'm always putting up clues on Poppy's Field Project on Telegram, so that way you can kind of see where I'm heading. So oh, I'm sorry. Well, here, if you go to Telegram here, I don't know if I can, let me just give you the Poppies for Project link, and maybe that will help. So that way you can go there first, because you have to have the app. So if you don't have the app, then you have to download the app. I know I'm one of these people that likes to stay on Telegram because it's still underground, and it gives our opportunity for our audience to come in and chat with us and get to know us a little bit more intimately. And yeah, so thank you again, and I'm looking forward to cracking the next week's code. I love you guys, and we'll see you on the south side or the north side. Much love,
the
everyone.
flip side.
Bye.
Bye.